morning, Tiffany. Can you guys believe she's asleep? And she slept fairly well last night, too. Are we in, like, a turnover? Is something happening? Like, she still woke up a ton, but it didn't take very long to get her back to sleep, and she slept in, like, 3 and 4 hour stretches. Yeah, I guess she did just wear herself out. I don't know. Like, we woke up at 5 a.m. instead of 6, but I'll take it for the longer stretches overnight. I'd rather get up at 5 and sleep well through the night than wake up at 6 and have crap sleep and wake up every hour. You know what I mean? So, that's all I'm gonna say on that matter. Yeah, it is time. It's time for us to sleep well, right? I don't know what happened. Like, we didn't do anything. I don't know. I really don't know, you guys. But I'm not complaining. Like, I'll take it any day. Actually, we did do something differently now that I think of it. I'll tell you as soon as this stops being loud. Just have to get that standing, get over that other system. Maybe, or... So my husband had an idea that we tried yesterday. Can you guys hear me, or is the machine just like way too loud right now? I'll wait if it's too loud, and I'll tell you right after. It's a little loud. Okay, I'll wait a second. Okay. How's it going, everybody? How are we feeling? Feeling good? Feeling fine? I hope so. So here's the thing. When we went to her... Hey, Naisa. Hey, Brittany. So we went to her 9-month appointment, like you do, and the doctor asked us how many meals a day she's having. And I said, well, it depends on how you define a meal at this age, right? Good morning. So she said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, she has breakfast with us, she has lunch with us, and she has snacks throughout the day, including like a snack when she wakes up in the morning, a snack at the park, etc. and so on. And then she goes to bed before we have dinner, so she doesn't have like a dinner per se, but she has, oh, Discord alert, that was smart. But she has, 2 structured meals, and she has some snacks, right? Hold on, the machine's gonna be loud in a second. Before anyone goes off like worrying that I'm not feeding my baby enough, her nutrients still come from milk. The food is just like an exploration, right? Like, she's not 1 yet, so she's not really getting a lot of nutrients from food. She gets all of her bottles, she has breast milk, she has formula, and then she has food for fun, but also for exploration and for learning and for us making sure she doesn't have allergies and so on and so forth, right? But the doctor said to us at that appointment, she was like, you need to be giving her dinner. And I was like, oh, well, you said to feed her like with us, like have her at our meals, but we eat dinner after she goes to bed. And she was like, we'll give her her own dinner before bed, and then you guys eat after. And I was like, okay, fine, we will. Whatever. So we started doing that right after the 9-month appointment, and she hates it. Like, she's not interested, right? But we did it anyway, and we kept going with it, and we were feeding her stuff and whatever, and yada, yada, yada. And finally, my husband last night pinpointed, he was like, that's kind of when her sleep has never been great, but that's when it took a nosedive and got really bad, right after that appointment. And he was like, what if it's upsetting her stomach to eat right before bed, And he was like, let's just not give her dinner, quote unquote. She had a snack at 4 p.m., you know what I mean? Whatever, she has bottles all the time, not solid food at dinner time, and see how she does. She slept so well last night, you guys. And wasn't doing the thrashing around, wasn't up for a long time. I think having food right before sleeping was causing her tummy to hurt. Yeah, and I don't think it's necessary for her to have quote unquote dinner. You know what I mean? She's an infant. Well, not an infant, she's a baby. And like I said, it's not like we're starving her at all by any means. She eats on demand. She can eat any time she wants, but we were just saving solid foods for the times when she's going to be awake, so that she has time to digest it. And I think he was kind of genius for this because she slept in 3 and 4 hour stretches last night, and none of her wake ups were more than 5-6 minutes. When she did wake up, I fed her right back to sleep. I just breastfed her back to sleep. Nothing. 3 and 4 hour stretches. All this last couple months, since I guess almost a month or whatever since her 9-month appointment, she has been waking up every hour or hour and a half. 3 and 4 hour stretches is a miracle for us right now. So it's only one day, and you can't make a sample size out of one thing, but I'm going to try it again tonight. It could be. Did you at least get 3 hours stretch? Yes, I did. That's why I look so refreshed. Do you see? I'm like a human almost. I feel so good. And like I said, she woke me up at 5 and was like, we're getting up at 5. But I was like, I'll take it. I'll wake up at 5 if it means that I can sleep in longer stretches through the night. No complaints from me. Yeah, no, for real, Amanda. So I was like, we'll try this again the next couple of days, and if it consistently works, then, let's see what TikTok thinks about you being a human. That's funny, Anya. You got the jokes. Anya's got the jokes, you guys. Yeah, I hope we can continue this pattern because, like I said, even though she woke up, I want to say 3 or 4 times last night, which is, whatever, but they were really short wake-ups. I got her out of the crib, I fed her for a couple of minutes, and she fell back asleep. You know what I mean? As opposed to before where we were up for an hour or an hour and a half. This is so much better than that. Infinitely better. So, anyway, genius husband came up with a good idea. How are you all? Did you all sleep? Most of you have older children except for Stephanie. Stephanie's the only one who has a younger baby than me. I mean, I don't know if I would call it unhinged. I think you're probably right, Anya, considering my track record with TikTok. They really don't think I'm human 9 times out of 10, right? Okay, question for you all. How excited are you guys to see Connor's stories? Because if you're not excited to see Connor's stories, you're missing out. Because man, they're funny. They are. Anyway, I got on early because, like I said, she fell asleep early, so I was like, we should take advantage of the time we have while she's asleep. Who knows how long she's going to stay asleep? Maybe it'll be like the old days and she will sleep for the full hour. I don't know. Hey, Jen. So I'm just hoping for the best now, and we'll cross our fingers that she just stays asleep a while. She's been asleep since 8:05, you guys. 8:05. I was struggling to get her to sleep by 8:25 the last month. 8:05, just passed out on her own. I was like, okay, good night. Anyway, get hype, everyone, because they're good. It's true. Yes, we won't jinx ourselves, right? You're right. So we're gonna read chapter 3 right now, and who knows how much more. Chapter 3 is called The Fallen Emperor. Yeah, true, Amanda, that's true. Yeah, it's really good. The civilians were so thankful that their kings and queens had escaped execution that they all stood a little taller in the dried up lake. However, to avoid being the target of the emperor's building frustration, they kept as still and as quiet as possible. Inside the ruins of the northern palace, in a large chamber that Queen Snow White and King Chandler once ruled from, the masked man paced feverishly in front of his new throne. The large chair had been built from all the pieces of the other thrones of the kingdoms that the literary army had conquered.
I don't understand how your idiot soldiers didn't know the platform was rigged, he yelled. Why didn't they check it?
With the time shift, it probably feels right to her. Yeah, probably. That's probably true. When the time first changed, she was waking up at 5 even with the wake-ups, so I don't know. The Wicked Witch of the West, the Queen of Hearts, and Captain Hook stood before the masked man. The new emperor had fallen into a daring routine of blaming the literary villains when something didn't go as planned.
Our soldiers, the Wicked Witch of the West said. You've been commanding our armies since we arrived. If you want them to inspect the platform before the execution, then you should have ordered them to do it.
Just jump from John's book to this. It's such a wild. It's completely wild. The literary villains had endured about as much as they could stand from the masked man. It was thanks to them that he was emperor in the first place, but instead of fulfilling his end of the bargains, the masked man was bossing them around as if they were his servants. Power had clearly gone to his head, and that was enough. I've got enough about how we failed you, the Queen of Hearts barked. It's time you coughed up what you promised us. You promised me Peter Pan, Captain Hook shouted.
And you promised me the silver slippers, the Wicked Witch of the West hollered.
And you promised me heads, the Queen of Hearts roared. And the masked man didn't have an ounce of empathy for these literary villains. Their frustration was nothing compared to the rage boiling up inside of him.
You'll get what I promised you as soon as the royals have been captured and executed, the masked man said. You agreed to make me an emperor, and I won't be a true emperor until all of my adversaries have been destroyed.
Footsteps echoed through the throne room. The masked man and the literary villains turned to see Mr. Smee sprinting toward them. The pirate was sweating. He was wheezing and shaking like he'd been running from something terrible.
Excuse me, Your Excellency, Smee panted.
This better be important,
the masked man said.
It's about the creature in the dungeon, sir, Smee said.
The creature, responsible for turning the Fairy Council into stone, was kept in the dungeon, the very same cell that once contained the evil queen. It was a monster of legendary power, so the masked man had ordered all of the Captain Hook's pirates to patrol the dungeon and keep an eye on it. Morning, Jillian. We're barely just a page in.
Yeah, what about it?
The masked man said. Mr. Smee was trembling so much that his knees rattled together. No matter how he put it, he knew that the Emperor would be furious when he heard the news.
It escaped, Smee said. Somehow it managed to take off its blindfold while it was in its cell, and when the pirates went to feed it, they looked in the eye, and, well, they were turned into stone.
Like steam from a tea kettle, so much anger built up inside the masked man that a thunderous howl erupted from his mouth. He wrapped his hands around Smee's throat and strangled the pirate. The day had turned into an epic disaster, and unfortunately for him, it was about to get much, much worse. A horn was blown outside to announce the return of the literary soldiers who had been sent after the royal families, and the masked man dropped Smee and bolted outside to the balcony. The Wicked Witch, the Queen of Hearts, and Captain Hook followed him. From the balcony, the masked man could see the Winkies and the card soldiers slowly emerging from the forest. They were all battered and bruised. Many couldn't even walk without the help of another. They had come back with far fewer horses than they left with. The flying monkeys descended from the sky and looked just as bad as the Winkies and the cards, if not worse. They were so discombobulated that many of them missed the balcony and smacked right into the walls of the palace. Worst of all, there was no sign of the royal families anywhere. The masked man grabbed the closest winged monkey by its vest and shook him violently.
Where are the royal families? He roared.
They escaped,
the monkey screeched.
How did they get away? You outnumbered them 10 to 1.
The masked man screamed.
They had a very strategic plan that we weren't prepared for. They had backup waiting in the woods, men on horses, men in trees. They even had a boy who flew.
The masked man felt like his heart had fallen out of his chest. If it weren't for his mask, they would have all seen the color drain from his face. He prayed that he had misheard the winged monkey and that his ears were playing a cruel trick on his mind.
Did you just say they even had a boy who flew?
He asked. Good morning, Nikki. Wait, Nikki, weren't you on here? Good morning, Nikki.
We're only a page and a half in. You're good to go. The winged monkey nodded. Yes, sir, it said, and he wore clothes made out of leaves. He flew up from the trees. And he threw firecrackers at us. Peter Pan, Captain Hook growled. You said he was trapped inside the book until we retrieved him. Okay, I thought so. I was like, am I crazy? Wasn't I talking to Nikki before? I literally thought I had lost my mind. The masked man threw the winged monkey on the floor and clutched his chest. He felt like he was having a heart attack. Every time he thought the situation couldn't get worse, it was proved otherwise. That's fair, Nikki. No, this is impossible, the masked man said. If Peter Pan managed to escape, that would mean my niece and my nephew did too. The masked man quickly turned to the literary villains, and his fury dissolved into fear. The Queen of Hearts and Captain Hook were more furious than he had ever seen them. With Peter Pan and the royal families out of his reach, the masked man wasn't capable of fulfilling his end of the agreement. They had followed him into the fairy tale world and given him the use of their soldiers and cavalry for nothing. Listen, I can give you what I promised, he said. I just need more time. Captain Hook and the Queen of Hearts slowly moved toward him, backing into the railing of the balcony. Liar, the Queen of Hearts roared. No royals, no heads. And you can't give me Peter Pan if you don't have Peter Pan, Captain Hook said through a clenched jaw. He was about to be knocked off afraid he was about to be knocked off the balcony. The masked man fell to his knees and groveled at the Wicked Witch's feet. I can still give you the silver slippers, he pleaded. Not all is lost. I won't be fooled by any more of your lies, the Wicked Witch of the West said. Your reign ends today. The Wicked Witch of the West tapped the floor with her umbrella, and two of her flying monkeys grabbed the masked man by the arms. They flew him as high as they could into the sky and dangled him above the forest. The civilians in the dried-up lake alerted one another to the sight, but no one even knew what was happening. Don't do this, the masked man cried. You're making a mistake. My niece and nephew will destroy you without me. Our biggest mistake was trusting you, the Wicked Witch of the West shrieked, and she tapped her umbrella again, and then the flying monkeys dropped the masked man. He plummeted toward the earth, screaming the entire way down, and landed somewhere deep in the forest. Look, the Emperor has fallen, the Wicked Witch cackled. It was obvious to the civilians that the literary villains had just staged a coup. Now that the masked man was gone, the civilians wanted to cheer, but the Emperor's death didn't mean that their troubles were over. If we aren't getting what we came for, then what should we do now? Captain Hook asked. Return to Neverland, Oz, and Wonderland? The literary villains thought it over, but now that they had seen the fairy tale world with their own eyes, their own worlds weren't that appealing. With the masked man gone, they had ultimate and unlimited power over this strange land, and power is easily addictive when placed in the wrong hands. It seemed that the fairy tale world had much more to offer than their own worlds did. I rather like this world, Captain Hook said. There are no lost boys, mermaids, or Indians to fight. And if Peter Pan is here, there's no reason for me to return to Neverland. There are no White Queens, Mad Hatters, or Cheshire Cats to pester us here either, the Queen of Hearts said. Why return to Wonderland when I have plenty of heads to roll right here? There are no wizards, munchkins, or good witches to stand in our way, the Wicked Witch of the West said, and I have more power here than the slippers could give me in Oz. The literary villains shared a menacing smile. Let's stay in this world and rule the empire ourselves, the Wicked Witch said. Perhaps if we work together, we'll achieve even more than the masked man promised us. The villains turned their gaze to the civilians in the dried-up lake. From the way the three villains glared down at the balcony, the civilians knew that their nightmare was far from over. Uh-oh. Well then. Well, then. And since she's obviously still asleep, on to Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called A Nice Family Dinner. The Storybook Grill was a popular place for dinner during the week. By 7 o'clock each night, the diner was usually filled with families and teenagers ordering their weight in goblin fries and midnight milkshakes. There were always loud, energetic crowds, and tonight was no exception. However, the group in the booth at the very back did not match the liveliness of the other patrons, so they stuck out like a sore thumb. Cindy, Lindy, Minnie, and Wendy, 4 teenage girls recently reinstated as the book huggers, somberly sipped milkshakes and shared a basket of fries. The girls each had a copy of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in front of them, but none of them seemed very interested in it. Oh, yeah, Mom was mad. She was mad, big mad.
We should probably talk about the book if we're going to be a book club again, Cindy said, and the other girls nodded, but no one was eager to start. The quartet had recently taken a break from books to focus on other passions, well, another passion, and started a conspiracy club. However, that club only made them more restless than they already were, and they had been advised to take up reading again. Did anyone have a favorite passage that they would like to share? Cindy asked, or maybe a favorite character? All the book huggers were quiet, forcing Cindy to take charge. All right, Lindy, let's start with you, she said. Lindy was awkwardly hunched over her milkshake and staring off into space when Cindy called on her, whatever was on her mind. It wasn't Sherlock Holmes. I like The Hound, Lindy said. The Hound of Baskerville? Cindy asked. Lindy looked uncomfortably from side to side. Was there more than one? Did you even read the book? Cindy asked, and Lindy hunched lower than even before, shamefully shaking her head. Did anyone read the book this week? Cindy asked, and the book huggers slumped with embarrassment and shook their heads as well. Cindy let out a long and frustrated sigh. We cannot revive our book club if we're not even going to read the books, she said. But if I'm honest, I didn't read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes either. I started it, Mindy said. It was just so hard to focus on a fictitious mystery when the real-life mystery hasn't even been solved. The book huggers nodded in agreement. No matter how hard they tried to inspire themselves with new interests, new hobbies, and new clubs, or by resurrecting old clubs, the only thing consistent on their mind the past year was the disappearance of Alex and Connor Bailey. You'd think it would get easier over time, but it sure doesn't, Lindy said. We only started asking questions about Alex because we were bored and we had read all the books in the school library, Mindy said. But every answer only gave us more questions, and the more questions we had, the more infatuated we became. I've read books and watched television shows about people with real-life obsessions, and I never thought I'd become one of them, Lindy said. It's all I can think about when I'm awake, and it's all I dream about when I'm asleep. Wendy nodded. It was affecting her sleep, too. Bree Campbell knows something we don't know, Cindy said, but until one of us gains telepathic powers or waterboarding is legalized, I don't think we'll ever get it out of her. She's been absent from school for almost 2 weeks anyway, Mindy said. I wouldn't be surprised if she's the next one to transfer to Vermont, they said. Life had become exhausting to no end for the book huggers. They felt like mice stuck in a maze with no cheese. What are we going to do, girls? Lindy asked the table. I don't want this to affect the rest of our lives. I want to become a psychologist. I don't want to need a psychologist. I'll never be a heart surgeon if I can't even focus on medical school, Mindy said. And I'll never win my first presidential debate if I can't even remember the real issues, Cindy said. And Wendy pointed to the ceiling and made an X with her fingers, implying that she would never fulfill her dream of becoming an astronaut. It's gone too far, ladies, Cindy said. This is just one big 1984, and there's no use fighting Big Brother anymore. We have to pull ourselves together while we still can, and for the sake of our sanity and our destinies, we have to forget about the Bailey twins. The book huggers then raised their milkshakes and clinked them together. They were ready to turn over a new leaf. The undertaking wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary if they wanted to live normal lives again. Unfortunately, the book huggers' noble venture was about to feel like the punchline of a great cosmic joke. The front of the storybook grill swung open, and the Bailey twins walked in with Charlotte and Bob. Wendy happened to glance up from her milkshake right at that second and was the first to notice Alex and Connor. For the first moment after seeing them, Wendy was certain she was hallucinating. They'd just been talking about the Bailey twins. This was all too coincidental for them to just be in the same diner at the same time. But the longer that they stayed in her sight without disappearing, the more she realized they weren't a mirage. The real-life Alex and Connor Bailey were right there. Wendy went paralyzed with shock. The color drained from her face, and she couldn't feel her arms or her legs. I think we should actually read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, Cindy said. Next week, we'll just all come back to this diner and we'll have a real discussion about it, just like we used to. I concur, Mindy said, and we can do it a week from tomorrow. I'm getting my braces off a week from today.
Oh, congratulations, Lindy said. We have to wear a retainer. Wendy began humming to get the other book huggers' attention, but she was drowned out by the noise of the diner. Just for the first 6 weeks and then night after that, Mindy said. I was so relieved when I finally had mine taken off, Cindy said. It felt like the handcuffs had been removed from my mouth. My dentist said I don't need braces, Lindy said. It's probably a good thing because I don't have the patience for them. Wendy couldn't believe that they were talking about something so meaningless when something so extraordinary was right in front of them. She managed to regain feeling in one hand, and she lightly tapped Cindy on the shoulder with it. Wendy, are you okay? Lindy asked. You look like you're going to be sick, Mindy said. Was there something in your midnight milkshake? Cindy asked. Desperate for them to see what she was seeing, Wendy used resources she hadn't used since first grade. Spoken words. Alex, Connor, over there, Wendy peeped. Her voice was high-pitched and squeaky like a baby bird. The book huggers were so shocked to hear her make a noise, it took them a second to realize that she had used actual words out loud that had actual meaning. Once the message was interpreted, they jerked their heads to the direction of the door so fast that they pulled muscles in their necks. Once they saw the Bailey twins with their own eyes, the book huggers went as pale as Mount Rushmore. The twins were all eyes as they looked around the diner fusion of fairy tale and 1950s decor. They knew that Cinderella's stepmother and the stepsisters had opened a restaurant after moving to the other world, but this was their first time seeing it. Rosemary was in the middle of taking an order when she saw the Bailey twins out of the corner of her eye. The waitress abandoned the customers mid-sentence to greet her old friends. Well, look who the cat dragged in, Rosemary said as she hugged the twins. Hey, Rosemary, Connor said. This place looks great. Are Petunia and your mom around? Alex asked. Mother has the night off, and Petunia got another job working for a veterinarian, Rosemary said. Good riddance, if you ask me. She was a lousy waitress. I'll be sure to tell them that you stopped by, though. Are you coming for dinner? Yes, Charlotte said. Table for 4, please. Right this way, Rosemary said. And the stepsister grabbed 4 menus and sat them in a booth directly next to the book huggers. The girls quickly grabbed their copies of Sherlock Holmes and covered their faces with them, but Alex and Connor weren't paying attention anyway. The twins were so amused by all the art and knickknacks throughout the diner that they didn't even notice their former classmates. And how's Cinderella doing? Rosemary asked the twins once they were settled in their booth. Well, actually, Alex was about to tell Rosemary the truth when her mother gave her a stern look. Anything that might get them off the topic of the nice family discussion was not allowed at dinner tonight. She's just fine, Alex said. Hope's growing like a weed. Wonderful. Please give them my best, will you? Rosemary said. I hope you enjoy the food. When you're ready to order, just wave me down. Oh, by the way, we're out of the beanstalk salad tonight. Rosemary went back to the customers while Alex and her family looked over the menus. It referenced so many people and places in the fairy tale world it was absolutely aggravating not to talk about the current crisis. The twins hoped that their nice family dinner would end as soon as possible. So, kids, what's new? Charlotte asked. How are your friends doing? She was so calm and casual. Alex and Connor knew that she wasn't referring to the truth. They shared a curious look, and it suddenly dawned on them what their mother was doing. Their nice family dinner was a chance for Mom to pretend that they were a perfect normal family living perfectly normal lives. The twins felt like they were in a play that they didn't have the script for. Good? Connor said. Goldilocks and Jack are expecting their first baby. That's wonderful, Charlotte said. Do they know if it's a boy or a girl? She knew as well as he did that the fairy tale world didn't have ultrasounds, but he continued to play her game anyway. Nope, Connor said. I guess they're waiting for it to be a surprise. Your father and I did the same thing when we had you, Charlotte said. We weren't sure if we were having 2 boys or 2 girls. We just knew that there would be 2 of you. Imagine our surprise when we had 1 of each. We didn't have to return any of the baby clothes. Connor found this fascinating. Really? He said. What would you have named us if we were 2 girls or 2 boys? Well, the firstborn was going to be Alex, no matter what, Charlotte said. I've loved the name since I was a little girl, and it was the name of my favorite doll. But if Connor had been a girl, his name would have been Sarah. What a coincidence. Before Margaret passed away, we were planning on having a baby, and if it was a girl, we were going to name her Sarah too, Bob said. Were Alex and Connor an easy delivery? Charlotte let out a long laugh as the memory came to her. Giving birth was easy compared to the days that followed, she said. Their grandmother was so excited to have grandchildren that she visited us every day with someone new from the fairy tale world. The first day she brought Mother Goose, who almost mistakenly switched Connor's bottle with her flask. Thank goodness I was an overly protective first mom and I saw it happen. First-time mom. The second day we had the whole fairy council in the house. They were lovely, but they kept magically upgrading our belongings to nicer things. By the time they left, we didn't even recognize anything in our house. The twins had never heard this story before, and they laughed just as hard as Bob did. They could tell that their mom enjoyed telling it just as much as they enjoyed hearing it. "Those were good times," Charlotte said with a bittersweet smile. "I do miss them." These were the moments of the nice family discussion that Charlotte was so desperate for. The Bailey twins hadn't had them since their father died. There was no talk of death or turmoil, just usual conversations. They were just a family laughing and sharing stories with one another. As much as Alex wanted to continue hearing stories about their parents, not addressing the issues at hand was eating her alive. Connor could feel the impatience boiling inside his sister. He knew that it was only a matter of time before she ended their mother's game of pretend. "Mom, I'm sorry that I'm sorry that you haven't had more time to tell us stories like that," Alex said. "You're right. You and Dad raised us to put family first, and we haven't done that for a really long time." "Thank you, Alex," Charlotte said. "That means a lot." "But," Alex said, "I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when we know it's not." Connor covered his face with his hands. "Oh boy, here we go," he said. "Alex, I asked you guys not to bring up..." "I'm sorry, but I have to," Alex said. "Right now, a lot of people need our help. I know Connor and I have given up a lot, and you've given up a lot by association, but we don't care what we have to sacrifice if it saves our friends and all of our family, all the other families like ours. We're doing the right thing because that's also the kind of son and daughter that you and Dad raised. So will you please just let us?" Charlotte looked at her children differently than she had all day. She wasn't glaring at them with frustration or anger, but with pride. She reached across the table and she held their hands with her own. "I'm sorry," she said. "I guess I've just been a little selfish. All I wanted was for you to have the same experiences every teenager gets before this time in your lives is gone. But I know there's nothing normal about you guys. It doesn't matter what I want. You should be living the lives that you were meant for. Forgive me, it's just so difficult. After losing your father, I hate feeling like I'm losing you too." "I'm sorry we made you feel like you were losing us, Mom," Connor said. "You're my children, but you're other people's heroes," Charlotte said. "Any mother would be lucky to be in my shoes, but that doesn't mean that they're easy to wear. Sometimes at the end of the day, I have to pretend that you're both upstairs asleep in your beds." Charlotte dabbed the corner of her eyes with her napkin. Alex and Connor couldn't blame their mom for wishing things were different. They did too. The twins put so much time and effort into ending people's suffering, they didn't realize how much their own mother was hurting. But if their mom was willing, she was about to become more involved in their lives than she had ever been prepared for. "All right, well, tell me what's going on in the fairy tale world," Charlotte said, "and how in the world it is I'm going to help you with it." Alex and Connor were relieved that they could continue discussing their plan. Both opened their mouths to fill her in, but they were at a loss for words. After all, it was a complicated thing to explain. So much of it involved their Uncle Lloyd, and they didn't want to overwhelm their mother with the news of an evil brother-in-law. "Okay, well, long story short, a really terrible man has taken over the fairy tale world," Connor said. "They call him the Masked Man." "How did he take over?" Charlotte asked. He stole a potion from Grandma that turns every written work into a portal into the world that it describes," Alex said. "He traveled into Alex's Adventures in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, and Peter Pan, and somehow he recruited the Queen of Hearts, the Wicked Witch of the West, and Captain Hook, all their minions and soldiers, and they turned them into a big literary army and they attacked all the kingdoms." "Whoa, that sounds terrifying," Bob said. "Those villains used to give me nightmares when I was a kid." "Yeah, and they're much worse in real life," Connor said. "Imagine how scary you thought they were. Now double that image, cover it in butter, leave it outside for a week. That's how frightening they really are." "Why can't the Fairy Council do something? Why does it always have to fall on your shoulders?" Charlotte asked. Well, the Fairy Council's been turned to stone, and all the soldiers in the kingdom are no match for the literary army," Alex said. "If we don't find a way to stop them, no one will." Charlotte hated that so much responsibility had fallen on her children's young shoulders. "For the record, I'm not okay with you two fighting these guys," Charlotte said. "But how are you going to stop them?" Alex nudged Connor. "Go ahead. Tell her your plan," she said, and Connor did not appreciate his sister's unenthusiastic introduction. "Well, we're going to recruit our own army," he said. "We're going to use the same potion to travel into my short stories and bring back my characters." Charlotte and Bob couldn't believe what they were hearing. "Oh my gosh," Charlotte said. "Is that really the only thing that you can do?" "Trust me, I wish I could file a report with the Pentagon," Connor said, "but sometimes you gotta fight fire with fire." "I still don't see how I fit into all of this," Charlotte said. The moment had finally come for the twins to tell her. It was such an absurd request that the twins were even afraid to ask it. If she refused, they weren't sure who they could go to for help. So what we need is for you to look after Connor's characters when we bring them out of his stories," Alex said. It was like someone pressed the pause button on Charlotte and Bob. Without breathing or blinking, they just looked at the twins with open mouths and large eyes. They weren't taking this very well. Connor waved his hand in front of their faces. "Hey, whoa, hi, are you still with us?" he asked. "Sorry," Bob said. "It's just most parents of 15-year-olds only worry about getting asked for money for the movies or like a driver's permit." Connor sat up excitedly. "Oh my god, Alex, we're old enough for driver's permits," he said in one breath. "One crisis at a time, remember?" Alex said. "So Mom, Bob, can you help us?" Bob and Charlotte looked at each other and shrugged. "I mean, if it'll save the fairy tale world, I'm not going to object," Bob said. "What kinds of characters are going to be in my house?" Charlotte asked. "We've just had the carpets cleaned." "Oh, it's nothing crazy. It's pirates, cyborgs, superheroes, and mummies. The usual fictional suspects," Connor said under his breath. "So does that mean you guys are in?" The twins held their breath and Charlotte was hesitant, but it might have been more concerning if she were completely fine with the idea. "All right," she said. "I guess it'll be an adventure." The twins were so relieved that they sank a foot into their seats. "Awesome," Connor said. "That's fantastic," Alex said. Bob and Charlotte glanced down at the Storybook Grill menus, but it was a very difficult conversation to follow with french fries and hamburgers, so they both pushed the menus away. "You know, I think I've lost my appetite," Charlotte said. "Maybe we should go home and I'll cook something later." "Yeah, I agree," Bob said. The twins weren't going to argue, so they left the Storybook Grill with Bob and Charlotte and headed back home. All of them were completely unaware that their entire conversation had been heard by the patrons in the next booth. The book huggers leaned so far out of their seats to watch them leave that Cindy and Mindy fell onto the floor. The night had consisted of the most important eavesdropping of their life.
"Girls, did you just hear everything that I heard?"
"I'm really not sure," Lindy said. "My heart started beating so fast toward the end that I only heard every other word." "We've been right all along," Mindy said. "They never went to Vermont. They were living in another dimension. Why didn't any of us think of that?" Wendy raised her hand, reminding the group that that had been one of her suspicions from the beginning. "Forget Sherlock Holmes," Cindy said. "We've got our own mystery to follow." Dun, 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 dun. Well. Well, well, well. This will be trouble. That's correct. Guys, she's still asleep. I mean, so we just keep going, right? Chapter 5 is called Cries from the Castle. Had someone told Bree Campbell 2 weeks ago that she would soon be flying above another continent on a World War II plane with 3 distant relatives, she would have laughed. Ironically, that's exactly where Bree was, and she wanted to cry. She had always considered herself a person of good judgment and respectability, but as she bounced around the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress 13,000 feet in the air, somewhere between France and Germany, Bree suddenly felt like the lead character in a cautionary tale. "Can you believe I haven't flown one of these things since the 60s? Cornelia called from the captain's seat. The old woman's hands clutched the controls, but from the way that they jerked her back and forth, it looked like the plane was controlling her more than she was controlling it. Bree, Wanda, and Frenda were strapped into their seats and holding on for dear life. They had been flying for 9 hours straight, and thanks to Cornelia's questionable piloting skills, it had been the bumpiest flight of Bree's life. And from the way things were going, it might be her last. "And Cornelia, are you sure you don't need a hand up there?" Wanda asked. "I'm fine, thank you, dear," Cornelia said. "It's just like riding a bike." "Yeah, right off a cliff," Frenda said. When Bree first met the Sisters Grimm and heard about their life's work monitoring portals between the other world and the fairy tale world, she thought that they were the most capable group of women she had ever known. However, she was learning the hard way that that capability did not include flying a plane. "Cornelia, can you remind me where you went to piloting school again?" Bree asked. "Well, technically, I never went to school for it," Cornelia said. "My father was a pilot during the war, and this was his plane. He taught me to fly when I was about your age, Bree. He flew this baby to Germany many times. Thank goodness we're going under different circumstances." "Your father fought in World War II?" Bree asked. "That must have been difficult with so much family in Germany." "Oh, most of our family left before the war," Cornelia said. "Would you like a flying lesson, Bree?" Bree wasn't convinced that Cornelia even knew how to fly, let alone give a flying lesson. She looked to Wanda and Frenda, but they motioned for her to go. "You can't be worse at it than she is," Frenda said. "Learn everything she knows and then save us," Wanda said. Bree was scared to unbuckle her seatbelt, but she quickly unfastened it and dashed to the co-pilot seat beside Cornelia. There was an overwhelming number of buttons, switches, and levers before her. I don't think I can do this, Bree said. If you can operate that phone of yours so well, then this will be a walk in the park, Cornelia said. Besides, the co-pilot's job is the easiest. Wait a second, Bree said. There should be 2 pilots flying this plane? Well, traditionally, Cornelia said, but it doesn't always take 2 men. But doesn't it always take 2 men to do what a woman can do on her own? Cornelia, girl. Bree would never have gotten on the plane if she thought that it would lead to this. She was making a trip to save a friend, but who was going to save her? As soon as she learned that Emmerich had been kidnapped, Bree had a strong feeling that it wasn't a normal otherworld abduction. She had no evidence to support her suspicion, but she felt it with every fiber of her being, and she couldn't shake it no matter how hard she tried. Bree had pestered Frau Himmelsbach for more information about the incident, but Emmerich's mother grew tired of the questions and eventually ignored her calls. Bree shared her hunch with the Sisters Grimm, and they agreed that the circumstances were fishy. Well, it's curious he was kidnapped so soon after being in the fairy tale world, Cornelia said. Yeah, if he was taken by someone from the fairy tale world, we do have tools that can prove it, Wanda told Bree. What kind of tools? Bree asked. Cross-dimensional emission tracking devices, Brenda said. Whenever someone or something travels between the worlds, the portal leaves radiation, like a scent on them. We have machines that can detect it out. Awesome, Bree said. All we need now is a way to get to Germany. Cornelia had been cooped up in their Connecticut home for so long, she was looking for any excuse to get out of the house. She generously offered Bree a ride to Germany on their family plane. Bree was so desperate to find Emmerich that she didn't hesitate to take her up on her offer. There was only one thing standing in her way. Bree had technically run away from home to find the Sisters Grimm, so if she was going to go to Europe, she really needed a good excuse that her parents wouldn't use to call the police. Luckily, Cornelia supplied that as well. Is this little Eddie? Cornelia said to Bree's father over the phone. This is your cousin Cornelia. I know. It has been a very long time. Darling, I'm calling to sincerely apologize to you and your wife. You see, Bree recently called me with some questions about our family heritage. She was so interested that I invited her to come stay with me. I would tell you more. Well, I just found out she never ran a bike. I know, my thoughts exactly. It is inexcusable. I'm sure that you were, I know, scared to death. My intention was to send her home immediately, but unfortunately, I had a bad fall this morning and injured my head. No, I'm not in any pain. Yeah, well, yes, there is something you can do about it. Actually, would it be terrible if Bree stayed with me just until the end of the week? I'm useless on my own, just till Wanda gets back into town, and then we'll put her on the train home. She's been such a help to me. No, you bet, absolutely. We won't give her any privileges at all. No, of course. Thank you so much, dear. The next thing Bree knew, she and the Sisters Grimm were on their way to a small private airport. However, Bree, Wanda, and Brenda all thought that Cornelia had hired a pilot to take them to Germany. They didn't realize that Cornelia was going to fly the plane herself. Until she switched on the propellers and launched them into takeoff. At just 15 years old, Bree was sitting next to this old woman being taught to fly a Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. If Bree lived long enough to become an old woman herself, she wasn't sure that her grandchildren would ever believe the story that she was currently living. Taking off is the easy part, Cornelia instructed. You simply start the propellers with the blue dial, turn the red gear to steering mode, and then to get the plane onto the runway, you push the green lever and then pull up on the controls. Bree gulped. Blue dial, red gear, green lever, controls, she repeated. Perfect, Cornelia said. To fly, all you do is pull up on the green lever and turn the red gear to flight mode. Adjust the altitude with the brown handle and steer with the controls. Here, you give it a go. Cornelia flipped the switch and the whole plane turned off. They entered a rapid descent toward the earth. Bree watched in a panic as the numbers on the altitude monitor dropped hundreds of feet per second. Wanda and Brenda were screaming so loudly that Bree could barely focus. Green lever, red gear, brown handles, controls, Bree said, mimicking everything that Cornelia had just instructed. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress stopped plunging toward the ground and glided smoothly through the clouds. In fact, it was flying much more easily with Bree at the controls. Oh, you're a natural flyer, Cornelia said. It's in our DNA. Bree thought that there might be some truth to this, since the magic in their family's blood came from Mother Goose. She wondered if a few of Mother Goose's flying genes had been transferred there too. There was actually a lot about Cornelia that reminded Bree of Mother Goose. They both had the same twinkle in their eye when they put others in danger. How much longer until we're on the ground? Wanda called. Safely on the ground? We've already begun our descent, Cornelia said. We'll land shortly after we've passed over Fusen. I went to Fusen. Oh, I think I told you guys that already. Bree recalled that the area didn't have many large cities. Does Fusen even have an airport? She asked. No, we don't need an airport to land, Cornelia said. To quote Coco Chanel, the world is your runway. Mother, she was talking about fashion, not flying, Brenda yelled. Everyone stop worrying. This baby's built for combat, Cornelia said. They didn't care what it was built for. Landing a plane anywhere but an airport sounded like a crash landing to them. Bree, Wanda, and Frenda tightened their seatbelts until there was no slack left. Soon, the small Bavarian city of Houston came into view, and Cornelia searched the ground for a smooth surface to land on. That field over there should do. Cornelia jerked the controls, and the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress curved through the air, lowering toward the grassy field below. As the plane turned, Bree caught a glimpse of Neuschwanstein Castle peeking through the hills in the distance. It was as if she were seeing an old friend. The castle was just as majestic as it was the first time she saw it with Connor on Mary's Bridge. All right, time for your landing lesson, Cornelia said. You start by turning the red gear to landing mode. Pull up on the green lever, turn the black knob to put down the wheels, and pull up on the controls so we're parallel to the ground. Red gear, green lever, black knob, controls. Got it, Bree said. Splendid, Cornelia said. Now land us. Bree, Frenda, and Wanda were horrified. It was like Cornelia had a death wish or something. What? I've never landed a plane before, Bree said. The plane was getting closer and closer to the ground. Someone had to land it before it was too late. Cornelia looked over her glasses at Bree with total faith in her eyes. Sometimes if we enter situations that scare us with both hands on the wheel, they don't seem quite as frightening, she said as calmly as ever, or in this case, with both hands on the controls. Bree couldn't believe that Cornelia was making her do this. She could feel her heart beating at the back of her throat. One wrong move and they would all be dead. Carefully, Bree turned the gear to landing mode and pulled up on the green lever, turned the black knob to put the wheels down, and held up the controls to make the plane parallel to the ground. We're gonna crash, Wanda yelled and vigorously crossed her chest. Wanda, you're not even Catholic, Frida said. I know, but we're gonna need all the help we can get. The wheels slammed into the grassy field and the plane landed like a rock skipping across the lake. It tore up a large strip of earth as if leaving a long message in Morse code. Finally, the plane decelerated and rolled into shaky, sudden stop. Oh, my God, Bree said in disbelief. I just landed a plane. Mother, how could you let a 15-year-old land a plane? Frenda said, and Cornelia burst into fits of giggles. You're all so gullible, she said. I had it on autopilot the whole time. The others didn't find this funny at all. You mean all of that was for nothing? Bree said with an angry scowl. No, you did quite well, Cornelia said. Had the autopilot failed, we would have had a successful landing. My father did the same thing to me on my first flight. The best lessons are learned with a sink or swim, and honestly, you're quite the swimmer. Once their hearts settled to a normal pace, Bree and the sisters Grimm locked up the plane and headed for Emmerich's house. Bree thought leaving the plane unattended in a field was a strange thing to do, but Cornelia assured her that planes were very difficult to steal. That's probably very true. Good morning, Isabella. Bree led the women through the outskirts of Houston and into the little village just below Neuschwanstein Castle called, oh man, not this again, Holhinch, you know what? It starts with an H. We're going to call it H-Town. Since Cornelia walked with a cane, Bree was worried for the journey to be too much for her, but the old woman hobbled along excited to be on another Sisters Grimm adventure. They walked past the souvenir shops, the restaurants, and the inns dedicated to the castle. They found the Himmelsbach's tiny home on the edge of town. There it is, Bree said and pointed to the front step. That's where Connor and I met him. H-Town it is. The sight made Bree feel remarkably nostalgic. It seemed like just yesterday she and Connor had told Emmerich that they were secret agents taking them to the castle for visiting and he'd take them into the castle for visiting after visiting hours. Whoa, sorry, I don't know why that was hard to read. They hadn't been friends for long, but Bree and Emmerich had shared such an incredible once-in-a-lifetime adventure that she couldn't believe there was a time in her life when the little German boy was even a stranger. She just hoped that they could bring him home, wherever he was. Well, here goes nothing, Bree said. I hope Frau Himmelsbach is better at answering the door than she is at answering her phone. They walked up to the front steps and they rang the doorbell. They waited, but no one answered, and Bree rang the doorbell again, holding it down longer, and a moment later Frau Himmelsbach answered the door. Kann ich dir helfen? She asked. And if Bree hadn't recognized her voice from the phone, she wouldn't have thought it was Emmerich's mother. The woman had brown hair and olive skin, very different from her son's pale skin and rosy complexion. She had puffy eyes and sunken cheeks. It looked like she had been crying and not eating much. She wore a big black robe over a nightgown and probably hadn't changed clothes in days. The woman wasn't exactly what Bree was expecting, but she definitely looked like the mother of a missing child. Frau Himmelsbach, I'm so sorry to disturb you, Bree said. I'm Bree Campbell, your son's friend from the United States. Emmerich's mother was not happy to see her, especially not to see that she had brought friends with her. What is wrong with you, child? The Frau said. I told you to stop calling me, and now you come to my house.
I'm sorry, Bree said. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I couldn't stay away. These are my cousins Cornelia, Friend, and Wanda. We've traveled all this way because we want to help you find your son. Frau Himmelsbach crossed her arms and shook her head. She was not so easy to convince. You Americans and your egos, she said. What can you do that the Bavarian police cannot do? Bree looked to the Sisters Grimm, hoping that one of them would have an answer. We're private investigators, and we specialize in child abduction, Cornelia said. We've brought special equipment with us that may point us in the direction of whoever took your child. The police searched every inch of my home, the Frau said. They didn't find a single clue. With all due respect, ma'am, Wanda said, the Bavarian police can't find clues like we can. Please, may we come inside? The distressed mother looked back and forth among the women and tried to think of a reason not to let them in, but she couldn't find one. Fine, she said. I apologize. My house is a mess. Frau Himmelsbach escorted Bree and the Sisters Grimm inside her home. The Frau offered them a seat in the sitting room, and Cornelia and Bree happily accepted. From the sofa, they could see into Emmerich's bedroom through an open door in the hall. The walls were covered with posters of superheroes. Bree remembered him saying that he wanted to visit the United States because that's where superheroes lived. The memory made her miss him even more. May we have a look around? Frenda asked. As you wish, the Frau said. Frenda and Wanda went to work straight away, and they each removed the cross-dimensional emission tracking device from their purse. The device looked like a long microphone connected to an old radio. They waved the microphone parts around the house, and the radio parts beeped as they went. They searched the sitting room and the kitchen, but they didn't find anything. The search continued into Emmerich's bedroom, and when they scanned the area by his window, the machine beeped like crazy. Wanda looked to Bree and Cornelia, and with one nod she said 1,000 words. Someone from the fairy tale world had definitely been there. Bree's hunch was right. Was Emmerich taken through the window? Frenda asked. Yes, Frau Himmelsbach said, surprised that they knew. It happened in the night. Emmerich was sleeping in his bedroom while I was in here reading. I heard a noise, so I checked on him. His window was open in the distance. I saw someone in a black cloak running away with Emmerich over their shoulder. She broke into tears, recalling the terrifying sight, and Cornelia offered her a handkerchief. I chased after them, but they disappeared into the night, the Frau said. I called the police, and they came to the house every day for a week, and they never found anything, not even a fingerprint. How did you know he was taken through the window? If they were going to tell the Frau the truth, Bree figured it was better to start at the beginning. Okay, look, shortly before Emmerich was taken, he and I made a crazy discovery, Bree said. We did this thing like a blood test, and it proved that he and I are actually related. Like, our blood matches DNA from the Brothers Grimm. The Brothers Grimm? The Frau asked. Yes, Bree continued, which means Cornelia, Frenda, Wanda, and myself are either related to you or Emmerich's father. The Frau was very confused. I wouldn't know either way, she said. Emmerich isn't my biological son. He's adopted. Adopted? Bree said in shock. He never mentioned that. That's because I never told him, Frau Himmelsbach said. He was abandoned when he was a baby. I didn't want him living thinking that he was unwanted. Everything Bree thought she knew suddenly changed. She quickly abandoned her plan to tell the Frau about the fairy tale world. Clearly, she didn't have the facts straight. Where was he found? Bree asked. Neuschwanstein Castle, she said. My father used to work nights there as a security guard. One night, he was patrolling the halls and he heard crying. He followed the cries to the singer's hall and he found Emmerich wrapped up in a blanket in the middle of the floor. Someone must have left him there during an earlier tour in the day. It was very strange because my father swore he had checked the room multiple times earlier that night and he never saw the baby. Bree and the Sisters Grimm were thinking the same thing. Emmerich wasn't related to the Brothers Grimm after all. He was just from the fairy tale world. Someone must have crossed through the portal in Singer's Hall and left him in the castle. The Frau's eyes suddenly grew wide as she covered her mouth fearfully. Wait a moment, she said. That reminds me of something I completely forgot. There was a note pinned to his blanket the night he was found. Let me see if I can find it. Emmerich's mom went down the hall to her bedroom, and they heard her searching madly through all her drawers. A few minutes later, she returned with a piece of parchment. Her hands were shaking as if she were holding a ransom note. She handed it to Bree, and the Sisters Grimm gathered around to read the note. To whoever finds this child, please take him to a loving home that will offer him protection. His father is a very dangerous man, and the child is not safe with his mother. Should the father learn of his son's existence, the child will be in grave danger. It appeared that Bree and the Sisters Grimm had helped the Frau uncover the suspect of her son's disappearance, Emmerich's biological father. It was so many years ago I forgot the note even existed, Frau Himmelsbach confessed. Even then, I didn't take it seriously. I never thought that they would find him. Should we take this to the police? Wanda asked. No, we can't, the Frau exclaimed. You see, I never legally adopted Emmerich. I fell in love with him the minute my father brought him home, and at the time, we were poor. I was afraid that he'd be taken away if we called the police, so we kept it a secret. If they found out now, I would never see him again. Bree had so many questions. She could barely see straight. She always loved a good mystery novel, but she never thought that her life would turn into one. Hey, Avery! Long time no see. If you're related to him, do you have any idea who Emmerich parents are? Frau Himmelsbach asked. Do you even know who they might have taken him? I'm afraid not, Bree said, but I know someone who might know. Guys, she's still asleep. Is this crazy or what? Should we just keep reading? Should we just keep going? Read another chapter? Are we gonna read 3 chapters today? Chapter 6, A Bewitching Offer. I really thought we were gonna go into Connor's stories today, but I guess not. Oh well. Go the distance, Mama. That's really funny, Nikki. That's very funny. I'm gonna tell you guys something. If I thought that it would make them not filter you, I would make all of our book club regulars into mods. It's a process, which is the only reason I haven't done it, because like we don't even do slime lives anymore, so we don't really need mods. I would just make you all mods if I thought it would, but it's still, Becca, Amanda, everybody still gets filtered even though they're technically mods. What is going on? Like, why does it do that? If I make someone a mod, shouldn't that tell the system, I want this person to talk to me? Like, am I off base with that thought? I have given this person control. Of course, Anya, of course you can. Here, let's see if I can remember how to do it. I don't know if I actually remember. Oh, I do remember. There you go. Now Anya's a mod and she can, well, now you review filtered comments. TikTok has filters for community. I know, it's silly though. My community is really lovely and I want to hear everything you all have to say. This is book club. We're here to talk to one another. I'm not here for you to get filtered. They should be worried about filtering people who aren't regularly on our lives. I mean, like, if someone is on my live every single day of the week, like, we're done here. You don't need to filter them, TikTok. We're okay. Like, this is a group of like 15 people who just get together to read books. We're fine. We're literally fine. Like, this isn't like some massive, like, outrageous. Anyway, chapter 6. You guys, we are rocking and rolling through this book. Look how far we're into it already. It's too late, Anya. The power's in your hands now. You might have been joking, but oh well, too late. You asked for it. You got it. Poor Anya. She's been making that joke for 2 years, and here we are, and I just did it out of the blue, and now she's like, crap. Now I got responsibilities. I don't want responsibilities. That was my attempt at making, I know that was funny. I know. You've been making that joke for years, and here now I just went and did it. Before it was hard because I could never remember how to do it. Like, there was some time when I like actually needed a mod and like trying to figure out how to do it was so difficult, but that was easy. Making Anya mod was easy. All right, let's keep going. Chapter 6, A Bewitching Offer. The masked man was awoken by a throbbing headache. He opened his eyes and discovered that he was somewhere in the forest, but he had no recollection of how he had gotten there. Ooh. Even stranger. Even stranger, when he looked around, he noticed the ground above his head, and apparently I don't know how to read. Let's try that again. When he looked around, he noticed that the ground was above his head and the smoky sky was below his feet. After further inspection, he realized that he was upside down, and his cape was caught on a tree branch, and he was hanging several feet in the air. As he slowly returned to full consciousness, the masked man remembered that the flying monkeys had dropped him there. He wasn't sure how long he had been hanging in the tree, but since he was still alive, he assumed that his cape must have broken his fall. He reached toward the branch, piercing his cape to set himself free. The motion sent excruciating pain through his entire body, and he screamed. The pain was so bad that he couldn't tell where it began or ended. Sleepy dust. Poof. Clearly, he had hit more than one branch on his way down. The masked man tugged on his cape and it ripped in half, and he fell to the ground and landed on his back with a thud. After a few minutes of lying on the ground, the masked man had a better idea of where the pain was coming from. His left arm was definitely broken. One of his right ribs was most likely cracked, and his right ankle was sprained at best. Half of his mask had been ripped off by something he had collided with during the fall. The bloody scratches covered the other side of his face. Still, it was a miracle that he had survived. He moaned and he struggled to his feet. All the blood in his head rushed to the other parts of his body, making him woozy. He removed his damaged cape and ripped his suit jacket into strips to make a sling for his arm. The physical pain was unbearable, but he was almost thankful for it. It was the only thing distracting him from his mental anguish. The masked man was not a stranger to disappointment, but losing an entire empire was one colossal setback that he never saw coming. After a lifetime of meticulous planning, he had finally achieved the power that he craved as a child, only to have it yanked away like a rug from underneath him. After such a narrow escape from death, a different man would have abandoned his quest for supremacy, but the masked man's need for power was like a disease. Fulfillment was the only cure. Like a phoenix, he immediately began calculating the path out of the ashes. Somehow, some way, he would reclaim his power and destroy the literary villains who had taken it from him. But first, he needed to find a path out of the forest. The masked man had no idea what part of the forest he had been dropped in, so he hobbled through the trees in search of an indication. After hours of limping aimlessly through the woods, he found more and more trees the further he went. Since the mythical creature had escaped into from the Northern Palace dungeon, the masked man was cautious and quiet as possible, just in case it was also wandering around the forest. Eventually, he stumbled upon a clearing with 3 unusual boulders. They were tall and stuck out of the ground like trees themselves. The masked man had a seat against one of the boulders and tightened his makeshift sling, but his rest was short-lived. A commotion traveled through the woods nearby. The sound became louder and louder as it moved closer and closer. It was a repetitive tremor, like the marching of several pairs of metal boots. Winky soldiers were approaching. The masked man assumed that the villains must have sent the soldiers to retrieve his body, but he was too wounded to outrun them, so he dived behind the boulders and hid from view. A few moments later, 2 rows of a dozen winky soldiers entered the clearing, but they weren't alone. The soldiers were escorting the Wicked Witch of the West, the Queen of Hearts, and Captain Hook through the forest. The sight of the literary villain sent rage through the masked man that was so powerful that his injuries were temporarily numbed. There wasn't a word in existence to describe the anger that was coursing through his veins. The Wicked Witch of the West, the Queen of Hearts, and Captain Hook paced around the clearing like they were waiting for something to happen. They didn't appear to be looking for the masked man, so he wondered what on earth they were doing in the woods.
"Well," Captain Hook growled, "where is she?"
"Are we certain this is the right place?" the Queen of Hearts asked. The Wicked Witch of the West unrolled a scroll of parchment held tightly in her hand.
"I'm positive," she said. "Her instructions say take the path for 4 miles into the dwarf forest and wait for me in a clearing with 3 stone trees. There hasn't been another clearing for miles. This must be it."
The masked man knew all too well that patience was not the villain's forte. The Wicked Witch, the Queen of Hearts, and Captain Hook became more restless by the second.
"Well, whoever she is, I don't like her," Captain Hook snarled. "She has some nerve to keep us waiting like this."
"I want to hear what she's offering," the Queen of Hearts said. "But if it isn't appealing and we've come all this way, then I say we capture her and—"
"Cut off her head?"
the Wicked Witch asked mockingly.
"There are other ways to execute someone, you know, most of which are more entertaining and far less messy."
"Like dropping the masked man to his death," Captain Hook said with a nasty grin. "Watching him squirm and scream as he fell was fun, wasn't it? If only gravity affected everyone, my Hook would be covered in Peter Pan's blood by now."
The Queen of Hearts rolled her eyes. "I'm so sick of hearing that boy's name," she hollered. "He's a child, Captain. Let it go. From the way you obsessively talk about him, I'd say he's taken much more from you than just your hand." Captain Hook intended to respond with a snippy comment, but the pirate went quiet. He leaned against one of the boulders, and he placed his hook on his hip, thinking about what the Queen of Hearts had just said. From the bushes beside Captain Hook, the masked man had a perfect view of the revolver dangling from the captain's belt. He was drawn to the weapon like a moth to a flame. If he got his hands on it, with 3 quick shots, he could terminate the villains before the winky soldiers knew what was happening. Carefully, when they were all looking the opposite direction, the masked man reached his good hand toward the captain's waist and unfastened his holster. It was a painful effort with his cracked rib, and it took everything in him not to scream. Slowly, he removed the revolver from the holster, and the captain was none the wiser. The masked man examined the gun. It had 3 bullets, exactly what he needed to shoot the villains. He cocked it and aimed the weapon back and forth at the 3 of them, indecisive about which to kill first. Captain Hook became agitated and started stomping the clearing.
"I knew it was a trick," he said in a huff. We've been fooled. No one is meeting us in the woods today.
The Queen of Hearts and the Wicked Witch nodded in agreement, but just as they were about to order the soldiers to take them back, they were interrupted by a voice in the clearing. Haven't you heard of the phrase, good things come to those who wait? The masked man lowered the revolver when he heard the voice. It sounded awfully familiar. The villains and the Winky soldiers heard footsteps next, and they quickly turned to see a hooded creature approaching them. The soldiers raised their stabs towards the creature, but with a flick of its wrist, the weapons crumbled into dirt. The creature stepped into the clearing and lowered its hood. It was a beautiful woman with horns like a ram's curled around the sides of her face.
Marina,
The masked man whispered to himself. His desire to assassinate the villains was quickly replaced with curiosity. What did she want with them?
Are you the witch they call Marina?
The Wicked Witch of the West asked. I am, Marina said, and you must be the new leaders of this world. It's an honor to make your acquaintance. Defeating the kingdoms of the humans and the fairies is no easy task, and you've achieved what the witches have only dreamed of for centuries. The villain shared a proud look and stood a little taller. Since you're here, I'm assuming you received my letter? Marina asked. It's not every day that we receive an invitation to delivered by a crow, the Queen of Hearts said. Now, tell us what this offer of a lifetime you wrote about is. Well, it requires a lengthy explanation, Marina said. Can you please have a seat? The witch waved her hand toward 3 boulders, and they transformed into 3 large stone chairs for the villains to sit on. So far, the witch was very impressive. You see, the witches of this world have always had a long and unpleasant history with the people who rule it, Marina explained. So before you arrived here as rulers there was an impending witch hunt. Those fears were all but confirmed when the masked man became emperor. We were certain that once he executed the royal families, it would only be a matter of time before he ordered our extermination as well. But luckily, that's all changed now that you've taken his place.
If the masked man saw the witches as a threat, why should we view things any differently? Captain Hook asked.
Because the 3 of you are much wiser than your predecessors, Marina said. Why become enemies when we can have a glorious opportunity to become allies? The villains side-eyed one another. They weren't pleased with the way the conversation was going.
For your sake, I hope you're offering us more than friendship,
the Queen of Hearts warned. And Marina smiled and her eyes grew wide. They could tell that friendship was only the beginning of what she had to offer. Of course, I'll cut to the chase, she said. Recently I convinced the other witches that the only way that we could escape the pending genocide was by leaving this world. So we need a place all to ourselves where we won't be controlled by the fairies or ostracized by the humans. So I formed a plan for the witches to invade and conquer another dimension known as the Other World. The villains were instantly intrigued. The Other World? They asked in unison. Yeah, it's a world very similar to this one, but far greater, Marina explained. Hundreds of countries, thousands of cities, billions of people. There are structures and machines you can only dream of, and more land and sea than we could ever need. The best part is, that world operates entirely without magic. No fairies to limit us. Honestly, we'd be unstoppable. Her passionate description was hypnotizing. Still, the villains wondered if it could be too good to be true.
And how can you prove this exists? Captain Hook asked.
Take a look for yourself, Marina said. The witch's eyes suddenly lit up like the highlights of a car. Marina magically transferred images of the other world into the villains' minds, and their eyes glowed as brightly as hers. Visions of London, Paris, Tokyo, and New York flashed before their eyes. They saw the Eiffel Tower, pyramids of Giza, and the Great Wall of China, the Golden Gate Bridge, and the Taj Mahal. The villains had never seen a world so grand or so diverse before. The light faded from their eyes and was replaced with a glow of desire.
And how do we get into the other world?
The Wicked Witch asked. Well, the late fairy godmother has portals hidden all over the kingdoms, Marina said. Each one is difficult to open, and the journey takes a toll on anyone who's not a practitioner of white magic. Then how do you expect the witches to cross over? The Queen of Hearts asked. Well, as luck would have it, the 2 worlds are scheduled to collide real soon, Marina said. The doorway will open that will bridge the worlds like never before. Once it appears, we can charge into the other world and take it by storm. The villains' suspicion grew as much as their interest.
You seem to have it all figured out, Captain Hook said. What exactly do the witches want from us?
A devilish smile grew on Marina's face. This was the part she was most excited to tell them. Well, the witches don't want anything from you, she said.
Then why do they want to become allies? Captain Hook asked.
You misheard me, Captain, Marina said. The witches don't even know I'm here. I was speaking for myself when I proposed an alliance. The villains shared a look, each more confused than the other. Marina waved a hand over the dirt, and the 4th boulder shot up from the ground. She transformed it into a large throne, much taller than the villains' chairs, and she had a seat. I had every intention of leading the witches into the other world, Marina explained. Sadly, that leadership was stolen from me. 2 witches with seniority, the Snow Queen and the Sea Witch, they've taken that operation into their own clammy hands. But my frustration has taught me a valuable lesson. Witches are not like wolves. We do not belong in packs. Once we cross into the other world, we'll fight one another for dominance until there's only one of us left. So I began to have a new plan after the witches conquer the other world. The villains then shared a smile. Marina's plan was starting to make sense, and they liked where it was going.
So you're going to betray them,
The Wicked Witch said eagerly. Precisely, Marina said. The Snow Queen and the Sea Witch plan to cast a spell on the late fairy godmother's granddaughter, a powerful young fairy named Alex. They believe if they curse her strongly enough, they'll be able to turn the girl into a weapon and use her to vanquish the other world. I'm not entirely... Hi. Hey.
Hey, sleepy girl.
I'm not entirely convinced this will work. I believe there are more traditional ways of invading a new territory. You want our army, the Queen of Hearts said, and Marina clapped her hands excitedly. Exactly, she said. I say we let the witches be our pawns. Let them invade the other world and weaken its defenses. Once they've both exhausted all their resources, we'll charge into the other world and we'll steal it from them. We'll destroy Alex and the witches and whatever's left standing in our way. It was the most thrilling and lucrative offer that the villains had ever received. They were all fidgeting in their seats at the thought of the conquest. However, they still didn't know if Marina could be trusted. Oh, yeah, of course, we always cover her face. How do we know that you won't betray us in the end, too? Captain Hook asked.
Well, we've already been deceived once by someone in this world. We won't let it happen again,
the Wicked Witch said. Well, unlike the masked man, I don't bite off more than I can chew, Marina said. We'll divide the other world evenly among us, and we'll each have our own territory twice the size of this world. Surely there's more than enough land for each of us. Time is of the essence, though, so if you're interested, I need to know now. Do we have a deal or not? The villains huddled together to discuss the situation privately, but Marina could tell that they had already made up their minds. They were creatures of greed, and they couldn't refuse. We have a deal, Captain Hook said, but if you disappoint us, then we'll end you just like we ended the masked man. Marina laughed loudly. Oh, you think you killed the masked man? She said. Of course we killed him, the Queen of Hearts said. No man could have survived that fall. Yes, but the masked man isn't just a man, is he? He's a roach, Marina said sharply. Even if you cut off his head, he'll be back the very second a throne is left unattended. We haven't seen the last of him, but don't worry, I have something that will bring him to his knees if he tries to sabotage our plan.
And what is that?
The Wicked Witch asked. The villains were curious, but not nearly as curious as the masked man himself. He had very few possessions. What had the witch stolen? Oh, it's not what. It's who, Marina said. I kidnapped his son. It's a boy named Emmerich. The masked man has a child, Captain Hook asked. Not one he knows about, Marina said. But should he ever cross us, the boy will stop him in his tracks. Good morning, Liz. The masked man was so shocked. Yeah, we're here. The masked man was so shocked that he dropped the revolver. He no longer felt any of his injuries or the anger boiling up inside of him. He forgot all about losing his empire and the desire to kill the villains. All he could feel was adrenaline and heartbeat. That is true, Jen. That is true. Apparently I don't know how to read. Let's try that one more time. All he could feel was adrenaline and his heartbeat. All he could think about was the son that he never knew he had. I should return to the witches before they get suspicious, Marina said, and the witch stood from her stone throne, and with a snap of her fingers, all the boulders returned to normal. The villains were buzzing with anticipation. If they could invade the other world today, they wouldn't hesitate. When will the invasion take place? The Queen of Hearts asked. We want our soldiers to be prepared. Oh, it won't be long now, Marina said. When the time's right, we'll strike. I'll be in touch. The witch covered her horns with her hood and disappeared into the trees. The villains ordered the Winky soldiers to escort them out of the woods and practically skipped back to the northern palace. The masked man was still so astonished that he stayed in the bushes long after the villains were gone. Having a son presented him with a world of opportunities he never thought possible. If he played his card right, the masked man could regain much more than just an empire. He could salvage everything that had been stolen from him. Dun, dun, dun. I'm really a little bit sad that we
are ending right before the next chapter. It's too long to read right now, but the next chapter is the first one into Connor's stories, and I really thought we were getting into Connor's stories today, but it doesn't appear we are. It's a little bit of a bummer. Yes, this is a big safe space. It's totally true. Anya's right. I'm not so worried about the back of her head because the backs of most babies' heads look the same, so that part doesn't really bother me. But no faces because people are creepy and AI is creepy. I know, she's still asleep, you guys. What are we talking about here? Like, have I lost it? Have we entered a new era? Are we in sleep era? Are we? She's been asleep since 8:05. 8:05. That is literally, this is unheard of. No, really, Liz. Like, I was telling them before, like, last night was actually pretty good. Like, she slept in 3 and 4 hour stretches last night. So bizarre. I really hope her afternoon nap is just as good. Because if it is, that's amazing, Naisa. That's amazing. Naisa, how old is she again? They're close in age, right? How many naps is she at? We're at 2 naps currently. I got sleep too. Can you see it? My eyes are starting to look better. Yeah. Guys, I really thought we were going into Connor's stories today. I'm so thrilled that we got sleep, and I'm so thrilled that we got 3 chapters, but I'm like a little bit bummed that we didn't get into one of Connor's chapters because they're so funny. Tomorrow's gonna be amazing because it's so funny. Okay, here's the sitch. If she naps well this afternoon, I'm gonna try to go live during that time to finish some stuff that's like not book club related. Maybe we'll check in. I totally forgot to check in on the iceberg because no one reminded me in the comments. So I need to check in on the iceberg. We need to do catch up on the advent calendar and finish unboxing the baby books. And she's 8 months. Yeah, okay, so they were really close. Yeah, she was still in 3 naps when she was 8 months too. Yeah. I mean, she's almost 10 months now, but she's dropped down to 2 naps, which is fine. She does this nap in the morning and then she does a longer one in the afternoon usually. So anyway, I want to do that this afternoon. I'm hoping she goes down for a nap at like 12:45 or 1. So hopefully I'll be on around then and we can go into my little, oh, okay, Jen, I'm not sure, maybe, but don't stress about it. You've done me so many favors, I can't even be upset. Yeah, okay, so all that is good stuff. And I guess that's the whole kit and caboodle. I'll be able to show you also like the progress we've made on her room. Secret Husband painted the wall in her room. It's pink now, like an accent wall or whatever. And then he also has put together some of her furniture. It's super cute. I do want to have baby book club, but I'm concerned because my aunt is coming over to help me hold her while I do some cleaning. So I'm not sure we can do both baby book club and like a regular live, so we'll see. But all good things. And I definitely am gonna have a baby book club video because a company sent me a book for baby book club and I have to make a video about that. Okay, is there anything else we need? I think we're like rocking and rolling, right guys? Like I slept, I feel like I'm gonna get stuff done, you know? Like we're just gonna like get shit done today, you know? All right, I'll see you all later / tomorrow, all things depending, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.